morning.
Good morning, everyone.
What a week, Eilish. What a
What?
week.
Totally. We have had so much going on, and we've got an information-packed morning for you guys. Wherever you are, for the first hour, we're going to be crossing over. So we're going to be covering a lot of information about what's been happening here in Melbourne, and also with some of the things that are going on overseas. Second hour, we're having our beautiful Serene Teffaha from Advocate Me Lawyers talking about class actions. So stay tuned for the second hour as well. So really, really glad to have you all here and all our loyal viewers and supporters. So yeah, so where do we start, Kelly? First of all, I'd like to talk about Cuties and Netflix and prayers for California. Yes, let's pray for California, because what you are going through now, we went through here in Australia in January, and it was absolutely horrendous. And prayers to all of you guys for what you're going
Yeah,
through.
terrible. Yeah, we of everyone in the world are feeling where you guys are, and it makes me emotional when I cast my mind on it. You have our prayers, and you're on our minds. So we're sending you much love. We're sending you rain in our prayers. So just, you're going to get through this. We got through this. It's a tragic event, but the world is thinking of you. So to all those in California, we love you and we're thinking about you.
Yeah, and thank you to all the first responders and everyone doing such an amazing job there, trying to save homes and lives. So I decided this week, after what has been going on Netflix, that it's really time to join this global boycott with the Cuties pedo film. I've been concerned about my subscription to Netflix for a while. The Santa Clarita Diet, humouring cannibalism with Drew Barrymore was so distasteful. The 13 Reasons Why teenage suicide series that just goes on and freaking on, that really got to me. The final straw was this Cuties film. So I sent a unsubscribe. I'm never going to subscribe to them again. I don't care how interesting their documentaries are. I'll find my media and my entertainment elsewhere.
I know. Like, the actual, what was the direct quote from Netflix was actually, they confirmed that 93% of the content is not pedophilic. And the direct quote was, it's important to remember that our content is mostly pedophilia free.
Mostly
Pedophilia free. I mean, what is that? Talk about normalizing pedophilia. And this Cuties situation is just, it's disgusting. I mean,
even
these
watch
guys
it.
They're 11 years old. They haven't even reached puberty. So yeah, I mean, everyone I know has ditched their Netflix subscription, and everyone in the disclosure community should absolutely ditch their Netflix subscription. This is normalizing pedophilia. This is not okay. It's not okay. I did read that Netflix has lost $90 billion because of this situation.
Oh, and it will lose so much more. I mean, Hollywood's gone. Now Netflix is gone. The CEO of Netflix was caught with child porn. So
Yes, I saw that too.
Yeah, so the complete, organization and structure is funding pedophilia. So your Netflix subscription is funding child exploitation and pedophilia. And what I have also heard in other investigations is that and this is really disturbing, is that sometimes there is an actual real murder included in the gross violence of some of those series on Netflix. So I just really think, if you're against pedophilia and child exploitation and human trafficking, cancel your Netflix account today. Let's vote with our dollar And I will be talking
Absolutely.
more about voting with our dollar soon when we get on to the Victorian police and just what a schmozzle that is at the moment.
Yeah, Netflix has definitely become an insipid, dark, deep state. It's like the insipid move from Hollywood to Netflix. You know, it just feels very, very wrong, and absolutely, we should be out of there. Again, drop Netflix.
Yeah,
So I mean,
yeah.
that's just one thing that happened this week in the news. We've had such a big week overseas. You know, we've got the Julian Assange trial going. We've got Hillary Clinton's trial started on the 9th, my birthday. You know, there's so much going on broadly, and yet Melbourne has just consumed us because we're living in this insanity right now. So what's the update with Julian Assange, Alish?
So he's currently having a trial in the UK, and he's facing extradition to the US on charges of espionage. Now, we know that he very famously was the founder of WikiLeaks, and his source was Bradley Manning, who then became Chelsea Manning. Um, and what they did to poor Chelsea and what they have done to Julian Assange is criminal. And I wanted to talk about criminalising journalism too, because Julian Assange is an award-winning journalist. He has several awards, and he is one of our heroes and should be, and his name will go down in history as being one of the greatest world-winning, world prize-winning journalists ever, in all our regard.
Humanitarian.
Humanitarian, that's right.
Hmm.
Now, Julian has faced all sorts of ridiculous charges to try and get him over. I mean, he spent 7 years in London in the Ecuador embassy. They then, I think it was last year, the stormtroopers came in and arrested him, and he's been languishing in prison now. His health is deteriorating, and the Trump administration now is trying to extradite him overseas to the US from the UK. Mind you, he's an Australian journalist, okay? To face charges of espionage for, leaking details of war crimes. Since when is it a crime to leak details about war crimes? I mean, I thought that would be a very patriotic thing to do. And so I still have great faith that, if the America does succeed, I hope that he's basically, taken by the Marines and basically, given shelter and protection by the Trump administration, and the ridiculous sentence of like 157 years or something, or 75 years, is just basically, wiped out of court, because that was the previous administration that started those proceedings.
Yeah, and it was them that the war crimes were actually like
About.
against. So
Yeah.
yeah, about exactly. So I mean, then there's lots of talk, through the channels about Assange being related to the Trump family in some capacity, related to the Tesla family in some capacity. So we really don't know Julian Assange's like the intimate connections that are going on here. But I think the world may be quite surprised when the truth about who he is and what his connections are comes out. So I have faith that he will be protected and kept safe and sound by the Trump administration.
And I just really think that what we are experiencing at the moment is an attack on the freedom of the press, the freedom of journalism and alternative media. And so this is something that not only affects Julian Assange, it has recently in Melbourne affected Avi Yemeni from the Yemeni Report on Rebel News, which is, another activist alternative media network. And so we're seeing that, there's like the mainstream media aren't arrested, but an alternative media or someone that is, anti-establishment is getting arrested. There's, we need to protect our journalists, and we need to support our journalists, starting with Julian Assange, and Avi Yemeni, and the ones that have gone forward and, basically giving their whole lives for this, So,
yeah, absolutely.
and going into Melbourne now, like we have had another week of protests here, and it was really interesting. There was confusion about whether it was Saturday or Sunday. And so some
Yes, it
people
got
turned up.
sent out as yeah, it was much more cryptic this time. Like it's turned into sort of like a cryptic process where they don't give away the information until right at the last minute to sort of like, I guess, avoid the epic amounts of riot police that are just like outnumbering the protests like 1 to 20 sort of numbers. So I thought Vic Markets was a great place to start. I mean, that included the markets. They've got a bit of protection. It's a very communal space. I felt like it was a cool move, but yeah, the police turned up in abundance. But again, we're going to show a lot of that content today. We've got a lot of videos to show the world what exactly is happening in Melbourne. So if you're from our international audience, you get a really good scope of what's happening here in Australia. But let's just start, Eilish, on this concept of strong cities, which we've done a bit of digging this week. And I think the alternative channels are starting to do a bit of digging here. But this concept that has been discovered, which is that our Premier, Dan Andrews, before the lockdown, signed us up to Melbourne City to an initiative called the Strong Cities. And we were the only city in Australia that got signed up for this. Of course, there was no public input at all. No one had a clue what this meant or what it was going to look like during a lockdown. But let me just read you a quote, Eilish, about exactly straight off their website. So we've got some clear definition of what we're looking at. So
Yeah, sure.
I just took this great off the website. So the Strong Cities is a global counter-extremism organization dedicated to powering solutions to extremism and polarization in ways that are practical, affordable, effective, and scalable. For 10 years, Strong Cities has responded to the rising challenge of extremist movements, which I guess is us, or anything going against the ideology of the state, and the ideologies that underpin them, delivering cutting-edge programs built from world-leading expertise in communications, technology, grassroots networks, maybe you're talking about BLM there, knowledge and research, and policy advice. We believe that local communities are uniquely placed to counter violent extremism and create stronger and safer cities. So basically, it's all geared towards illegally oppressing any sort of movements or ideologies that go against the state's desires. So right now, we're living that, right? We are now the extremist movement going up against the state. And so the whole notion of the strong cities, of course, is to privatize our police force.
Which it has been, which it has now been. And the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. You know, that we've still got some police on the normal payroll and they're going about their normal activities. And then we have people in our communities, such as Lizzie, for example, who we had a guest on our previous show. And she had she's had some vandalism at her house recently. So she has a local policewoman looking after her case, Carly. And so she had these weird police come to the door and send her this letter basically warning her not to go to the protest, like a directive, but it had no letterhead and no wet signature, right? This came 2 Friday nights in a row for the 2 respective Melbourne protests. They came to the door. Carly, her local police officer, said, these guys, we don't know who they are. So this is an indication that the police that we're seeing on the streets, the black clothes ones with the black flag, the blacked out Australian flag with a blue stripe, is an indication that these are not our normal employed police. And I've been on a really heavy campaign to boycott serving the police or supporting any business that serves the police, right? No, I'm not going to that donut shop because they sell donuts to police, the whole kit and caboodle, right?
Well,
And
it looks
like
like
we've got 2 camps.
Yeah, I was about to say that. It looks like we've got a split. So we've got the Aussie police that we all know and love and have no issue with whatsoever, who essentially we would feel safe going to. And then we've got this whole other group that's being pushed in the mix. They're sort of in these black outfits, the Australian flags, black. They've got like zero empathy. They're just really violent, and they just seem to be like there's no humanity or no connection between us and them. It's very obvious split. And I think we can actually, I mean, I did some digging, Alish, with the strong cities, and isn't it, I keep wanting to say smart cities because that was the whole agenda one thing, but now we're on strong cities.
Strong cities,
defunding the police and re-privatizing them so they become like an extremist combat body armored force for the state, which is, by the way, being run internationally, connecting Melbourne with a lot of other cities that took the initiative. And it's sort of like globalizing this police force movement, which is so deep state. I mean, it's so infuriating to be a part of this. But so I found two clips that sort of like talked about the strong cities. There really wasn't much on there from the perspective of it being a problem, you know. So I thought, well, let's watch that, and then let's have a chat about how that's implicating Melbourne right now, because we are literally living probably the most extreme example of this.
Yep.
So let's play video number 1.
Boiled down to its essence, the SCN is actually a new law enforcement body whose laws will govern participating cities, including New York, Atlanta, Denver, and Minneapolis, that have already signed on as members. Law enforcement measures for these cities will dovetail with or emanate from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue and the United Nations, not from the U.S. Constitution and locally elected officials and the laws governing them. In her remarks at the unveiling of this new organization, Attorney General Lynch claimed that the new arrangement would work toward being an alliance of nations and would aspire to be a global community. The Strong Cities Network, therefore, should be known as a nascent global police force controlled by the United Nations, where central or global authority doesn't govern police power. It is controlled locally.
Jamie McIntyre here with AustralianNationalReview.com, only independent news site, or one of the few left in Australia today. I want to talk about a few topics today. Of course, Victoria seems to take up most of our headlines of late, and what we thought was bad situation is only getting worse. So a couple of things. You may have seen an innocent woman assaulted by multiple police officers. Can you believe this? Why she was in a car, sitting in a car at a checkpoint, which she's gone through back and forth for many days. They literally, for no reason, attacked her, dragged her out of the car. I mean, I'll show you the footage. You can see it. Sky News did a segment on it. And I mean, this is just one of many cases coming through as we speak. There's police, busting through the markets in Melbourne, harassing protesters that were peacefully protesting. And I mean, they're acting like goons. They have Darth Vader helmets on. You know, this is part of the other thing that people aren't aware of, which ANR ran a story on this week, highlighting Rockefeller Institute's behind resilient cities and strong city networks. Sounds like all nice sounding names, just like the global reset. Many of these socialists, communists are behind. And this is no theory, this is proven evidence out there. But the idea is setting up a private global police force around the world in selected cities. And guess what? Melbourne, first time Melbourne people are finding out this, is that Dan Andrews had them apply and were accepted along with Christchurch and Oceania, about several hundred cities around the world. But the only Australian city happens to be Melbourne, where a private global police force has been set up within the Victorian Police. And that's where you see the rampant terrorist type activity behaviour by these police. Very un-Australian. Well, it's very un-Australian because it's not an Australian police force. Now, I'm not saying there's not Victorian police there, but in amongst this is effectively a little bit like, you could almost liken it somehow to Antifa in America, funded by the same types of people like George Soros, had put amongst peaceful protesters to cause anarchy and be violent. This is like putting in a violent, privatized global police force amongst a normal police force to cause anarchy and violence. I mean, what's the difference? So we are dealing now with, to take over a state or a country, you don't need to send an army. You infiltrate the existing defense systems such as the police force, and you use nice sounding names like Strong Cities Resilience and all this Resilient City and Strong City Network. And you go and look all this up on AustralianNationalReview.com. There's an article there with all the links, etc. And I mean, it's fascism. It's communism. I mean, how much longer Australians going to take this? I warned some time ago this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. There's rumours that Dan Andrews might be getting the boot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I managed to find on the Smart and the Strong Cities. And Jamie put that out last night, actually. So he's just starting to talk about it as well. So we're starting to get some content around this. But while we were on the break there, I just Googled what the definition of violent extremism is. And this is what it says. Violent extremism occurs when a person or group decides that fear, terror, and violence are justified to achieve ideological, political, or social change. Who does that sound like? Who does that sound like to you? Does that sound like the peaceful protesters trying to get their freedom back? Or does that sound like our state government right now?
Wow, it sounds like we're under attack and they're targeting the very resistance that we represent. So our very lives and our freedoms and our front doors are in danger. You know, like it's really has come to our shores, guys. I never thought this day would come. This country was always a refuge country to my family, a place of refuge and prosperity and peace, somewhere where we could settle after the horrors of Eastern Europe. And now I'm feeling the same encroaching communist fascist regime that we saw that made my family escape all those many years ago to this fair land. So we have great concerns, those that grow up with these horror stories, and now what we are seeing online, and more of us need to talk about this and even look at some sort of review or appeal so that we can repeal this contract, this terrible contract with the UN and with the cabal, with the Soros Foundation and with the CCP.
It was really freaky this week because, watching the people who follow the flight paths around Australia, there's like the online apps that allow you to follow the flight. Well, this week, the flight path made a pentagram right on top of Melbourne City. Like, I'm not kidding you. It was a pentagram. And it was just like, when I saw that, something in me was like, oh my God, that's just, we have prepared ourselves for this deep state move for the last 20 years, and all of our reading and watching and understanding and searching for truth. And, it's still unimaginable to be actually living it, to be seeing this encroaching, suffocating, squeezed in state that we're in and it's a bit of a mind-blowing scenario. Like, just when you think it can't get any worse and it must swing back to the positive polarization, yes, there it is.
Can you guys see that? That's a flight path, guys. That's a flight path over Melbourne, if you can see that on my phone. Like, seriously, guys, this is really, really happening. A pentagram, which is a sacred symbol, which is the Star of Venus, but it has, as you know, if it's turned upside down and misused by these Satanists, like the upside down cross, they turn everything upside down. So, my goodness, it's certainly a real worrying thing to see that in the sky, because it's like they're really putting and shoving their dark occultism in the face of those of us who know about sacred symbology. To me, it's blasphemy. To me, it's blasphemy. Yeah, it really is. So,
I know, and like, even though we're about to launch into sort of like an hour's worth of, police violence and show the world what's actually happening in Melbourne, we just have to know, we still have to have faith here. We still have to know that we are the light and that we are the truth and that we are love. Right? We still need to know that. We have to hold that so firm in our consciousness and our mind that God wins. God has already won. So even though it's what we're about to show you looks really dire, and, we're documenting as it plays out real time, but, I have to remind everyone and myself every single day that God wins. no matter what, no matter how it looks in our daily lives right now. So, I mean, Eilish, like this week, our police commissioner, our favorite police commissioner came out. He's been nicknamed Chief Wiggum from The Simpsons, talking about how he referred to the protesters as if he had to come and eat his own vomit.
Like,
I mean,
yeah.
these are the words from our police commissioner who's running the show. So I actually found a little bit of footage, and we're also going to see the surveillance cameras that are being rolled out everywhere. And I think on that little clip, there's someone being arrested for putting out their bins. I mean, it's getting really insane here. So should we play that and have a chat and start to launch into what it's actually looking like with the protesting and the police violence?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's video 3, Viggy.
Rita, explain the dog returning to its vomit.
Well, this is Melbourne's own Chief Wiggum having another colourful
The nickname you
phrase.
came up with, the nickname you came up with.
And it was trending on Twitter this week.
That's
We were very
well done.
proud of that. That's
Well done.
I don't know. Do we have the Chief talking
Oh,
about
we do.
his
Here he is.
analogy?
I feel a bit like a dog returning to eat his own vomit. I mean, it's just, none of us would want to do that, and I'm sick of it.
So he's sick of it. He's sick of it. We saw the clip earlier of one of his goon policemen dragging a woman out of a car, but he's sick of it. He's the dog returning to his vomit. What does that phrase actually mean, James?
Well, it actually comes from the book of Proverbs. There's a line in there that says, like a dog returns to his vomit, the fool returns to his folly. And I love the fact that this was actually a favorite little speech trope of none other than Malcolm Turnbull, who loved to use that in his speeches and expressions to sound very high-minded and literary, with a bit of Old Testament wisdom from on high, now to his prophet, Chief Wiggum in Melbourne.
Now, we've got a photo here, Rita, of someone perving in your window, I think it is. No, it's not. It's a surveillance piece of police surveillance equipment. Have a look at this. This is what's doing the rounds in Melbourne streets. The camera right at the top looking into your window there. If you wake up and look out your window, it's a police surveillance. Welcome to 1984. Here's a bloke. Yes, sorry, Rita.
That's like, I was going to say, it's like that scene from The Simpsons talking about Chief Wiggum, with Chief Wiggum saying, "I'm watching you," he's watching all the children.
Well, here's what they're now...
Swimming naked, yeah.
Here's what they're now policing. They're now policing you putting out your bins. Have a look.
Oh.
So have you got a mask on you?
What's this?
Well, I'm asking the question if you have a mask on you.
Well,
Okay, well, you need to be wearing
obvious.
it. You need to be wearing it. So when I saw you were down the road, just on the corner there, what were you doing today?
I was getting my bin.
Okay, no worries.
Jeez, please tell me that's a comedy act. That's not real.
I hope so, but the comedy act
We don't
is
have-
Victoria. I'm sorry, the comedy act is Victoria. The whole world is a stage in Victoria, and all the comedians come and go. Chief Wiggum and the rest of them.
Oh my gosh! So that's so Chief Wiggum will never get. He'll never lose that. He'll never lose that title. Now, I just wanted to also say that a lot of people are talking about the smart cities and the strong cities and what's the difference. The smart cities is about facial recognition and tracking technology and the tracking apps, and basically keeping us under surveillance. As soon as our car rolls into town, they've got the registration identification that knows who's in the car with all the overhead cameras. They can see who's driving. So that's the smart cities, right? Then we have the strong cities, which is the militarized police, treasonous police arm of this, which is funded overall by the UN, and there's many programs in relation to many cities that have taken up this smart cities program. But I just wanted to make that clarification that we have smart cities and we have the strong cities, and just they're like two wings of the one bird of prey.
Yeah, and like we've seen in the first lockdown, like they really pushed so hard with getting these 5G towers up. I mean, it was happening 24/7 for months and months and months at night, still happening. And of course, we saw a lot of documented footage coming out from the city of all the surveillance cameras that have been installed everywhere. And even in that little clip there, we saw a reference to the surveillance cameras that have been wheeled out everywhere. So we're literally watching this surveilled state and this police state sort of merging right now into one, you know, pretty scary thing. And like there was this week, Alicia, there's been so much talk. You know, last week we interviewed Danny and he was telling us that the military were attempting to potentially arrest Dan Andrews for treason. And then as soon as that interview came out, all over my feed the next day, there was all these comments about him being basically mutiny from within their own party and that he would be replaced by another candidate by the end of the weekend. And then we saw an insider, a woman came out on her Facebook page as an insider connected to these caucuses and the government and what was actually playing out. She was convinced that there was some sort of mutiny within their own party. And then just when like that was, she was convinced that they had all come together and they were making the phone calls to get the numbers to overthrow him. And then we see that Parliament has been shut down because someone in Parliament has COVID-19 and the whole thing needs to be deep cleaned. And Parliament hasn't even sat this whole time. So I didn't even know how it's even possible. So that was a very convenient thing. So just when there seems to be this, you know, really viable takeover within the party to sack Dan Andrews, Parliament gets shut down.
Well, it's really interesting that COVID is being used for these kind of adjournments because the same kind of tactic was used in the Julian Assange court case in the UK to have him, you know, extradited to the US to face those espionage charges because the prosecuting lawyer's wife apparently contracted COVID. So this is we're seeing this play out. So it's a very convenient stalling tactic.
I know, man. So this strong cities, there's about 100, I think, other cities around the world that have signed up. They haven't signed up, but they have been signed up to this by their whatever they call our premier, whatever it is in your country, in your state. But none of it's been done with public consensus. There's been no public addressing or debating this topic. Like it's just been done, and now we're literally seeing the results. So let's have a look, I think, at this Melbourne protest this weekend. So we have our lamestream media reporting that there was all this violence and clashes between the police, and you're definitely going to see that like there's so much police force there. But actually, you know, I was reading quite a few reports, Eilish, and this is where we're going to start to see a split where the protesters had really good exchange with the police and the police were actually shaking their hand, saying that they were sick and over it as well and that they respect what they're doing and they don't actually want to be doing this and this is not what they signed up for. So, you know, I'm starting to see some like humanness come out with our police force, and I think we're going to start to see a real split between the divisions in the police force. And I don't think it's going to be too long between the Australian police actually stand with the protesters. So we can show our audience exactly what happened this weekend in Melbourne with the third freedom protest. We've got a series of videos from the Victoria market. So should we just bomb dive straight into them?
Yeah, let's go into that because this is what our there's so much that's been going on. We want to show you guys. So
yeah, we might actually play them back to back. So we'll just go video 4, 6, and 7, and just go do, and then we'll have a chat about it.
Yep.
Good evening. There have been violent clashes between police and anti-lockdown demonstrators, with shoppers at the Queen Vic Market caught up in the middle. It's the biggest protest so far and comes despite our COVID cases continuing to track down towards the target we need to ease restrictions.
Riot police amid the rows of fruit and vegetables. The Queen Vic Market turned into a battle zone.
This is so scary.
Sunday shoppers caught up in the middle of mayhem.
Are you here to protest?
No, I came to do my shopping. And watching peaceful protesters get bullied by this number of police is just disgusting.
Stall holders already struggling in lockdown, trying to trade on. Police taking no chances, arresting anyone who refused to give their name, address and a valid reason to be out.
Why have you been arrested?
This is just an illusion of power.
Anything you want to say?
In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, He is coming. He is coming for you.
All these laws and these lockdowns are against our basic human rights.
Even forcing masks on those not wearing them. Then they ran, trying to escape down Peel Street.
Activists have been antagonising police for at least an hour now. They don't care, they're angry, they're mad, and now police have had enough. They are closing in on these protesters.
They sprawled across busy intersections, but police blocked them, taking them to the ground. Officers forming a ring of force to hem the protesters in. Using an encrypted messaging app to communicate, another group fled down Elizabeth Street.
Police were prepared for the first group of activists at the Queen Victoria Market, but they had no idea about the second group. They have now taken over the city and it's now a game of cat and mouse.
Today's demonstration has been slammed by the city's Lord Mayor, who herself was caught up in the demonstration.
We've got traders who are trying their best to welcome customers to make some money during lockdown, and unfortunately this activity has meant that the entire block has been closed up.
And police have just told us 74 people were arrested, 176 fines were handed out. That's a total of $250,000. Police say they will...
And in a separate confrontation...
What the are you doing? What the are you doing? Get off me! Get out of the car! Relax!
Police dragged Natalie Bonner from her car after she repeatedly refused to hand over her licence.
I just thought, I'm going to die here. Like, this is scary, right?
It all started when an officer questioned the 29-year-old about the phone holder on her windscreen.
It wasn't like a stubborn, like, I'm not going to hand over my licence. It was more just like I just didn't want to deal with him.
It came across as very stubborn in the video.
Police have defended their actions, with Ms Bonner expected to be charged with a number of offences, including resisting arrest and driving with obscured vision.
Oh my gosh. That is so scary.
Last week, it was a pregnant woman getting arrested, which was traumatic and horrific to watch. Then we saw the organisers getting arrested for posting on Facebook. And now we're seeing people literally being forced and dragged out of their car in a really violent and scary manner. What was her crime? She had a car phone charger on her dashboard. That was what, and then she didn't give them her ID. Like, that is what happened, and that is a result. I mean, what's going on?
I have a windscreen mounted phone holder in my van. You know that, Kelly? Like, that's how I do my sat nav in my van. Like, that's how so many of us have.
Yeah.
So if that is an illegal appliance now, can you just like not sell it to us at the shops or something? Because we're just using things on our windscreen and our dash that we've used for the last 10 years, So
oh my God.
I really feel for that woman, and I really feel for Tim Atkins, the homeless gentleman we've got some footage, we had some footage on that as well. Yeah, and how he got violently run over by the police.
Oh yeah, we haven't got to that. We haven't got to that footage yet.
Yeah.
So we'll show that. Yeah. I mean, but like just going through the Vic markets, I mean, like they look like stormtroopers. It looks like Star Wars. There is a real distinctive difference, it feels to me, between our Aussie police in their basically police shirts and their blue and white hats, and these really scary black stormtroopers with their rounded off Star Wars like helmets and their big bubble shields. I mean, don't you feel like it looks like Star Wars? I mean, that's what, when I watched, I was like, whoa, man, this is getting trippier and trippier.
Well, the training manual is actually the same training manual they used to train the Gestapo. So like I said last week, I called them the Gestapo. I wasn't kidding. Like it's the same manual. It's the same instruction manual. And they're hiring psychopaths. They're psychologically profiling psychopaths. So if you're bleeding on the street or dying or, getting choked because they're stepping on your neck, these psychopaths aren't going to care. They're psychologically profiled. So we can't appeal to their humanity because they're selected for having none. Right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
this is a really, really scary thing and this is why I wanted to answer Alexandra's comment in the chat in regards to, well, how do we know which businesses, sell to police? Well, just talking about your average, going into the village, getting some bread at the bakery. If there's cops lining up for their donuts, walk out the bakery and say, if you're going to profit from police, I don't ever want to buy from you ever again, and you'll forever be known as someone that profits from these people. You know what I mean? We don't, so that's what I wanted to answer is just, use our eyes and not support businesses that sell to them.
And we've got to make the distinction here. Like, we are not against the police. Like, this is so frustrating because we're not fighting the police. That's not what's going on here. Although when you go to something like a protest, it becomes a fight between you and the police. But that is an illusion. We are fighting for our freedom. So we're essentially fighting against the state and these false lockdowns. The police just happen to be the bodyguards that stand in between us and that. So it's a real shame that the focus becomes on protesters against the police. That's absolutely, I don't know anyone who would stand up there and say that. We're against the brutality that we're seeing right now and the push for their tyrannical powers and their lack of humanity, their lack of connection to the people they're meant to be serving. But the fight isn't between us and the police. It's between us and these illegal laws and this illegal lockdown, these illegal states and our human rights being taken away. So I just want to be really clear there. And I hope that we see that the Australian police force starts standing with their people, because I guarantee that within the police force itself, there is full-on division going on right now.
Oh,
but
yeah,
having
there
said
is.
that, Eilish, we're going to show you two or three more really quick clips to do with how outrageous the police are being this week in regards to arresting people and running people over, and the clip that you referred to with the man who literally got run over by the police and then stomped on and is now in a coma, probably going to pass because of this violence. So
we pray for Tim Watkins and his family, and anyone that can stand by and let this happen to a vulnerable member of our community needs to really, dig deep, because this is happening to one of our brothers. He's already, going through a bit of a hard time.
Yeah.
Right. And to compound this with unforeseen injuries that when he's already having health issues, this is a major assault, and we should all really, really be, closely watching this. And, police have blood on their hands. If anything happens to Tim and he passes, the police will literally have blood on their hands.
Yeah. So we've got a clip coming up where a man's arrested for being at his neighbor's house. I mean, mind blown. The second one is the one we've just talked about. And the video we have got is just of a bystander recording where the police start to actually kick him in the head as he's got down. But the full story is that he was walking along, yes, He has some mental health issues with around bipolar, but never violent. He was literally crossing the road. The police ran into him with his car, knocked him flying into the air deliberately. And then when he was on the ground with he'd never responded violently, with nothing like that, they start to stomp him and kick him in the head. So let's watch those two clips back to back. And then I'm going to read you, Eilish, the statement that the news has put out on this topic. The police have actually put out on this topic.
Okay. Thanks, Biggie.
Yeah, no dramas for that. I'm happy with you.
Oh, thanks, mate.
That's fine. As for you, sir, I'm not satisfied that you are living at this address.
I don't live at this address.
You don't live at this address?
No.
You live next door?
Yes.
Is there any way to prove that you live next door? You haven't stated your name. What's your name?
My name's Marty.
Marty, and your surname?
But I haven't committed an offence, so...
Alright, so this is how it's going to go, Marty.
Okay.
Unless you provide some sort of identification or state your name and we can confirm it, you'll be arrested. Do you understand that?
Okay, and what happens if I get arrested?
Until we establish your name and your correct details, then you'll be released after that.
Oh well.
So that's the way it's going to go. We're allowed to do under the health officer.
You're allowed to go and...
Turn around, put your hands behind your back.
There you go.
Guys seriously, you guys are the worst.
That's fine.
How dare you do this to Aussie? How dare you do this?
Privacy, but he says that that person on the ground was his son. Hello, Glenn.
How are you?
How's your son?
Well, we don't know yet. He's in ICU and in a coma, and they put him in a coma last night to so they could do a CT scan on his head because he was stomped on or kicked by the police.
What was the result of the CT scan? Do you know?
Not sure. They haven't rung his wife yet. I rang her before, and they haven't gave the verdict yet.
So he's
he was suffering mental illness. He'd been in the hospital for a day and a half, waiting to go in the psych ward, which he suffered from bipolar, and they couldn't get him to bed. And what happened? I think he rang his apprentice. He's a roof plumber, and for his apprentice to come in, and so he ran out the front door to hop in the apprentice's car, and the hospital rang the police to apprehend him, and apparently there was two bystanders watched everything and saw everything that happened. They rammed him with the car on purpose, which they're going to testify about.
They rammed your son?
Yes, and he flew about 3 metres in the air on the nature strip. And these two people are getting interviewed by Channel 7 and Channel 7 today, according to his wife. And, yeah, it's just horrendous what they did.
So why did the hospital call the police? Did they believe he was a danger to himself or something?
A danger to himself, a danger to no one else. He might be 6'5" and looks like Hulk Hogan, but he's a gentle giant. And the police had no right to do what they did.
Do you know what happened with the police? Did he actually assault them or fight them or
No,
something?
he did not assault them. You look at the video, he's on his hands and knees, and they stomped on him. He was just trying to get away.
Yeah, well, certainly at that stage he's subdued, but do we know what went beforehand?
Nothing. That's when he got hit by the car when he was running across the road.
Oh, I see.
According to the witnesses, they rammed him on purpose. And these witnesses will testify to that.
Yeah, but that's not the police, is it? That's other people.
That's the police.
Oh, the police car rammed him.
The police car rammed him, yeah.
Okay.
And according to the witnesses, that is exactly what they saw, and they took the video of it, and they have the video which you've seen yourself. You've seen the policeman stomping on the bloke's head, you know. I couldn't sleep last night because I was so upset, and went from anger to like wanting to kill the police. You understand?
Yeah, don't do that.
It's disgusting. You know, the police talk about all this coward crap, the coward punch stuff. What do you think that policeman did? Stomped on someone's head that's mentally ill.
But move your anger away and worry about your son. Let other people be angry for you, all right?
Exactly,
just do that
I
for
am
me.
angry, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand you're angry, but I'm saying put that aside, look after your son, worry about other people can handle the anger, and the police will investigate it fully.
And the only reason I rang you, I thought, well, you're good at rattling chains. I've been listening to you through AW for 30 years, and I thought, well, something's got to be done. You know, I don't want you just brushed aside. This bloke needs to be accountable. He needs to lose his job. Policemen like that should not be in the job. My brother was a policeman for 40 years, and he never ever hurt anybody, and that no one should hurt people like that.
More than lose his job, if it is as it seems, he should be charged.
Oh,
He should
don't
be
worry,
charged.
his wife's already started legal action against the police force.
Has she?
She has. It's in motion.
Have police spoken to his wife or to you?
No. And I know my oldest son was going to ring Epping Police today and give them an ultimatum. And he said he was going to go through, but I couldn't help myself this morning. I was just so upset. I had to, because no one knew what happened.
How long has your son suffered from bipolar disorder?
About 12 years. He didn't have an episode for about 9 years, and just in the last 3 or 4 months, he's now and again he gets a bit manic and needs medication and attention, but not violent, not nothing.
So no history of violence, any history of attempted self-harm?
Nothing, no.
And is he medicated or not at all? Is he on regular medication?
Regular medication, yeah.
Well, something's gone wrong there. Maybe he's... Who knows?
Yeah.
God, it's an awful situation. Okay, you want us to... Well, look, the police are investigating it, in fairness, and it's so public. I think the police will investigate it very seriously. I don't think there's any question about that. If this person is found, as it seems, to have done the wrong thing, they'll end up charged. I don't think there's any question about that.
Well, that's a good thing.
And I think it should be. But meanwhile, you've got to get your son right.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, well, you can't go and see him. No one will let you go and see him, and they haven't. The hospital haven't rang back about. As I said, they gave him ketamine last night and put him into a coma and intubated him, and so they could give him a CAT scan.
What hospital's in?
Northern Hospital.
Is that where he escaped from or left?
Yeah, and it was just out the front of the hospital where it happened. Yeah.
And how long had he been there? How long had he been in the hospital?
A day and a half in emergency. They didn't have any beds for him.
Oh dear.
So he probably got frustrated, and because bipolar people are, manic and get quick, he just ran out of the hospital. Yeah.
All right, Glenn, hang on. We'll have a chat to you off air. See if we can talk to his brother and or his wife.
Oh my God. So.
Yeah, right. So.
That's what we're having to put up with right now here in Victoria. So, pray for us.
Pray for us. It's true. But let me so let's just go through that story with the last one we just saw, and the so basically the footage that's come out since we put the show together is actually you watch this man crossing the road, and the police car just comes storming around, knocks him flying right on the road. He wasn't doing anything or attacking anyone. He's crossing the road, and he flies into the air. Then he's down on the ground, and that's the scene that you just saw with the police actually stomping on him and kicking him in the head. And then we had his father contacted one of our biggest radio stations here and actually had a chat to the host on this topic of his son. And he said his son's never been violent. Yes, he does have bipolar. He wasn't being violent, though. He's now in a coma in the hospital, and they don't think he's going to live. And that's actually what's just happened. And I'm going to read to you now the commentary released by the police. So this is how the police have presented this to the news. Victoria Police confirmed they attended the scene following reports of a man behaving erratically. During the highly dynamic incident, a police officer was assaulted and OC spray was deployed before the man was arrested and subsequently taken to hospital for assessment. Upon arrival, the male allegedly became aggressive and damaged a police vehicle while attempting to avoid arrest.
Avoid arrest? This guy got run over, and then he got his head beaten in. If his foot lashed out and he kicked a tire of a police car, I hardly think that the guy should be arrested for that. You know what I mean? Oh my goodness.
And damaged a police vehicle. Yeah. They ran him over.
Yeah. His body, when you were running him over, damaged the police vehicle. Yeah. You probably with your spoiler or something, or your radiator. That's because you ran him over, And let's not. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's what we're dealing with this week. It's full on, right?
I know. And look, we're not going to have time to probably show all of this, but also this week we had the Tobin brothers, who are our major funeral directors here in Melbourne, they came out with an extremely sad, heartbreaking 10-minute interview, basically saying that Victoria and Melbourne suicides have skyrocketed, that in that day they were being interviewed last week, there was 9 suicides that they were handling just on that day. It's unprecedented numbers, and these are men and women 40 years to 20 years who have, committed suicide, and they were just in grief at the amount of suicides. Meanwhile, the Victorian government is refusing to release suicide statistics and saying that nothing's changed and there's been no impact at all on the suicide home. It's an outright lie.
And they're blaming certain suicides and calling it COVID as well. So this is absolutely outrageous. Someone hangs themselves and they died of COVID. Really? Maybe they hung themselves because of the COVID lockdown when they weren't able to open their business and their marriage and their finances and everything collapsed. Maybe that's what happened. In fact, there's Vince, a man that I speak to in High Street, Belmont, here near where I live. He's owned a menswear store for the last 30-odd years. I went in there the other day and he said he was really sad, and he said that his supplier came in and his supplier was complaining to Vince that he'd lost 6 accounts in menswear in around Victoria, and Vince thought that they just closed business, and the supplier said no, they suicided. So this is what they're not telling us. So let's go to that the video that you're talking about with Tobin Brothers, Biggie.
Are we going to have? Might not have time to squeeze it in, but it's a 4-minute clip. So
yeah, okay.
It's very sad. It's very sad. We can watch it though. Let's roll it. I mean, it is traumatic. Yeah.
The reason that Tobin Brothers has got behind this is an incredibly important one. These have been, particularly in the last few weeks, brutal weeks for you and your team, because you are doing. I mean, let's get straight to it here. You are dealing with far more suicides than you would want and expect. You are, you don't want any, but you are burying young people, young, healthy people who took their own life.
Yeah. Look, it's and that's been a driving reason why I decided to get such a week off as Listen Now week, because we've seen a significant rise this year in suicide deaths. Significant, and right at the time of me talking to you, we have 9 people in our care that have taken their own lives.
Just for Tobin Brothers. Just for Tobin Brothers, there are 9 people this week, or currently in your establishments.
Currently in our care, and and I had a very, I reached out to one of my managers the other night who runs a subsidiary company in the Tobin Group, and I just to see how she's doing, because I know that she's got 3 boys at home. She's homeschooling them, also running an important division of the Tobin Group. And I said, how are you doing? And she said, I'm pretty sad at the moment. And I just scratched the surface a bit further with her on why that was. And then she told me that the last 5 funerals that she'd arranged in the last 48 hours had all been for males under the age of 40 years of age that have all taken their own life. Now, that was in just a 2-day period this week that she'd cared for those funerals. I then, went away and looked a little bit further, and as I'm talking to you now, as I said, we have 9 people in our care, 8 males who've taken their life, and 1 female, all the ages 43 to 21. And I've been a funeral director for 33 years. Suicides have always been a really challenging and difficult funerals for all involved to deal with. And the numbers have always been too high, Justin.
Yeah.
But I just haven't seen numbers like I've seen this year. So much so that we saw the state coroner, John Cain, unprecedented in my memory of a coroner coming out and speaking of their great concern in and around the numbers of deaths as a result of suicide, and particularly in young men.
I just think about all, you know, the nine this week. You think about all of the families, all of the people that knew those 9 people. I think about your staff that are involved in dealing with it, but the families, the friends, the echoes of each one of those suicides and the tragedy itself is just incredible. If that was happening for some other reason, we would be screaming from the rooftops, wouldn't we? If we were talking about, you know, that number for deaths on people on mobile phones in cars, for example, we would be screaming about it. And yet the conversation still with suicide is just so, just hushed, don't.
So sad. So sad.
Yeah. So, and it's a really big issue here in regards to, what the economic ramifications of this continued lockdown and his, path to nowhere that Dan Andrews is proposing with the continued curfew. I mean, still in Melbourne, they're facing a, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. So between the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. they're not allowed to, go out of their house, basically under forcible house arrest,
Yeah.
So,
Which came out this week, didn't it? Came out, big topic, that it wasn't a directive from the health commissioner, and therefore under this emergency laws, it's actually not legal to have a curfew on the population. And so that hit the news this week, and has anything changed? No. Terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is illegal, and we'll talk to Serene about that one. It's like a hot topic that I'm sure everyone wants to have a chat about. Is the curfew legal or not?
Mm-hmm.
But those suicide rates, I mean, it's just really humbling watching those guys talk. You can feel the depth of their distress and heartbreak on these topics, and we're just seeing suicide reports all over the place coming out, and we really encourage other funeral directors to come up and tell us, like, to get it out there, this information, to actually put it in the media. Otherwise, it's not going to be presented to the public. They're going to do everything in their power to censor it, because the cost of the lockdown is felt and is way more potent when we're looking at the mental health issues, the isolation, the suicide rates, the deaths in the elderly care homes from just hopelessness and giving up. I mean, it's awful, the deaths that COVID is creating that have nothing to do with catching the pandemic.
Yeah. And since when is holding completely healthy people with no symptoms in a house under house arrest even a thing? So we need to start supporting the lawyers that support these class actions. We need to have a look at the amazing work of Serene Teffaha in our second hour as she's coming up. And we also need to look at some of the draconian things that they're doing, like forcibly medicating people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, all right, so we found this terrible, awful, heart-wrenching clip. Literally, it goes for 8 minutes, so we've cut it into 2 pieces. But this is scene of a man who willingly walked into a hospital to do his blood work, to get his blood work done, and they forcibly kept him basically retained in there, and basically forced him to take drugs, and they wanted to go down to the psych ward. As you can see in the video, the man is absolutely in his right mind. He knows his rights. He's not causing any harm. He's refusing adamantly. He doesn't want medication. They end up calling the police and forcibly. And this is in an Australian hospital in the last 2 months. So, I mean, it's really shocking. And, we really want to show this just to show you where we're at. And then we can actually have a proper conversation about the legal rights of people in this situation, because this stuff's happening, in the underbellies, in the background, in the hospitals that do never make media, like live media attention. And These are people just like you and me. And at every given minute, we're going to be in a situation where our rights could be taken away. We could be taken off to a psych ward and falsely administrated and pumped full of drugs. And, you know, where's our advocacy? So shall we have a look at these videos? So let's play the first part and the second part. We'll just play them back to back, and so we can expose this crime that's happening within the Australian hospitals right now in 2020.
Under the mental health, no. If the psychiatrists aren't happy with your mental health, we can unfortunately treat you against your will.
No needle and no drugs. Zero. Zero means zero. I have a perfectly healthy body. I'm one with the Father, and I do not come under your law and your spell.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you do come under the law.
No.
Yeah.
Under whose law?
Well, the law of the land, the Mental Health Act.
No, you're pushing it against my free will.
Yeah, well,
under God's will.
Unfortunately, it's
under the Christian Bible.
It's one of those circumstances where we can treat you against your will.
No. So you're going to force vaccines onto people too, are you?
No, we're not talking about vaccines. We're just talking about medication.
No, I don't need no medication.
Clearer.
No, clearer and for what? Clearer for what? For truth? For truth?
The psychiatrist in Mackay felt that when they spoke to you...
Yeah, he felt it, exactly right.
Yeah.
Through the computer.
Yeah. That's why they want to see you in person.
I don't know.
The only way they can see you in person is if you take some medication.
I'm not taking no medication.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a completely healthy body.
We know that. Okay.
Yeah, well, you know it, exactly right.
So
no but.
refusing to take any medication.
Yes, and no needle.
Do you realise what happens though if you're going to refuse at the moment? Then
What?
We're trying to give you the option to take a tablet.
Yeah, I don't want no tablets. Okay. Does anyone force you to eat food and drink water and how to sleep? And to take tablets and drugs?
If they were concerned about my mental health, they probably would.
No.
Because they're under the law, they have the ability to do it.
I don't have to do it.
If you're not willing to do it, we do have to get the police to come and assist us.
What? And what? Then force it onto me, are you?
So how that we can get you down to Mackay and get you assessed by the psychiatrist.
No. So I've said no.
I understand you've said
so why are you now forcing this against me?
Because there is a law that we are going by that allows us to do this. And we're
so you're now going to get the police, are you?
Actually look after you.
Yeah, you're looking after me after whose best interest? Yours.
No, it's your best interest.
No, it's not my... Yeah, I'm telling you, no. Yeah, I'm an adult.
I know that.
I'm a citizen, and I'm a human being, and I've said no.
Yeah,
Simple.
We know that.
Yeah, well, you know it, exactly. Yeah. Full stop. Full stop. I'm going to take this matter further, you realise that? This is going to go to... I'm going to take this to the lawyers. If you force that on me, I'm taking this to the lawyers. Yeah, I will be. This won't stop here. So I've said no. So what, you want me to call someone now? Want me to call the police?
No, it's fine.
I'm going to call the police.
Yeah, well, they're here actually. So
Where are they?
They'll just be down in a few minutes.
Yeah, see, now they're obviously forcing this against me now, eh? Very nice. Mental Health Act. Yeah. And under whose rules? And whose laws?
The government rules. The government rules.
Government, huh?
Yeah.
What about LORE, the law of this land? The real law. Indigenous law. You're doing treason. You're forcing this. How many other children, innocent children and people are you forcing this against?
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm willing to go down and see the psychologist, happily to go see that under my free will and walk myself in. I am not taking no drugs. And
Do you feel like you need to go see that?
No, I do not. Of course not. I've come to get my blood tests. That was it.
Okay. Have you had blood?
Yesterday I had my blood test and that was it.
Is that here?
Yes, here. I'm waiting to get my results back whenever that's today or tomorrow. Simple.
What brought you here to get blood tests yesterday?
To make sure that my body is fine, my physical body is fine.
Did you have any concerns about anything?
It's just a general check-up that I should be doing. I've been putting it off. I've been putting off for a while now, and I need to do it. My mum's a nurse, and she's told me to go get it done, so I've done that.
Do you have a GP that you see at all?
Yeah, but not here.
Not here, okay.
Yes.
Where are you from?
I'm from Northern New South Wales. So I want You can't be forcing this against me. What do you got? You got that in your hand now.
Because, like I said,
I'm not taking. Yes, I've said no. I said no before I came in here. I've said no before I came in here. Yeah. You're not bringing that stuff near me, mate. You stay away. I am filming you live. Now stay away from me with those drugs.
Dr. Ben?
No, you're exactly right.
So, right now,
No.
you have a disconnect with what's going on. The police have been...
No, I don't. You're forcing this against me, mate. This is going live, mate.
Will be for your best treatment.
It's not for... No, I would choose that.
So therefore I'm going to hand over to...
I would choose that. You can't.
Either way,
you can't.
So either you take it, by yourself, or...
You can't, mate. You can't do this. You cannot. I've broken no law. What have I done? You can't arrest me.
What's going to happen, mate? We're going to hold you down.
No, you can't hold me down, mate.
We are, mate.
You cannot hold me down. You can't touch me, mate. You can't touch me. You're going against my will.
Just sit down.
You're going against my will, guys. Leave me alone.
We are going
You either arrest me. You either arrest me. No, you can't force me, guys. What are you doing? You can't force me. You can't force me, mate.
So there's so much to do on the front of human rights, and so and that is not at all finished and not at all over. In fact, we have one of the heroes of public advocacy and human rights with us now. I'm so proud to present Serene Teffaha. Thank you so much for joining us. Serene joins us from Advocate Me Lawyers, and the lawyers are taking out class action. So let's get into that. Let's talk about your Biosecurity Act as well. So thank you so much, Serene, for joining us this morning here on Aussie Disclosure News. We're so honoured to have you.
Thank you so much for providing me a platform. I really appreciate, your time and your dedication. I'm not sure if I'm a hero, really. I think that's a big responsibility, but I definitely feel very passionate about injustice, and I feel very passionate about uniting people together. So I think being heroic is really about us all being heroic together, saying no to the injustices, and being alert and aware of our environment and what is going on around us, daring to question the status quo, and look behind, behind the smoke screen for the real answers. And when so many of us are being very troubled and very badly impacted by the measures that have been brought in by our governments, we really have to ask the question, are they doing the right thing? When so many people are experiencing pain, clearly there is a problem.
Yeah, and we really need to differentiate, I guess, between in the structure of how our powers that be are administrating this too, because with our strong cities that we were looking at this morning, Serene, on the show in our first hour, we're looking at the weaving between the smart cities and then the UN-controlled strong cities, which is this militarized police force. I mean, so it's really fascinating to me to ask, who do you even take to court?
These are very good questions.
Yeah, very good.
They're very good questions. I have spoken out about foreign interference, and it becomes extremely difficult to follow exactly who is making these decisions, who are actually the decision makers and the architects behind these decisions. We're told it's the chief health officer, but the chief health officer the other day came out and said, well, he's not making those decisions. He himself admitted, there's these documents that are being signed under my name, but guess what? I'm not really making them. Okay, so when you have these decision makers themselves coming out and saying,
I'm not making them. And then you've got Daniel Andrews coming out and saying he's kind of not making them too. And then the police chief coming out saying, I'm not making them. I'm like, okay, well, who's actually making the decisions here, you know? And really this comes back to a very important point, you know, which I talk about a lot, about the idea of sovereignty in government. And I'm not talking about, we are a federation in terms of the states and Australia. So we act as a federation. So there is no real sovereignty between the states and Australia. But I'm talking collectively as a nation, as sovereign nations, we need to ensure that our decision making is truly for those who voted in and truly within the political paradigm that we've set up. But the reality is that political paradigm is no longer what it presents itself to be. There are deals that are being struck by our politicians and external parties, which is very indicative of what you've just said, Elish. I mean, you know, we've undersigned to this stronger cities and smarter cities. We know that there are a number of billionaires behind these, the architects behind these things, George Soros and other individuals, the UN and others that are obviously creating these benchmarks of how they see a particular vision for our city. And when we've signed up to that, well, what does that actually mean? You know, when does the police stop being for the people? I mean, we already know the police is a private corporation. I mean, this is where the concern is as well. You know, they present themselves as being a governmental body, you know, as .vic.gov.au, but are you really .vic.gov.au? You know, are these cops, are these commissioners? I mean, who are they answering to? Why is there difference? You know, you see it visibly, so you have to ask the question, you know, who's saying, oh, now we've got these cops that look like these super troopers, these, you know, stormtroopers coming in with all their costumes, and they're coming in like with a vengeance to hurt and create so much division. I mean, where is this coming from? Who's coming up with these uniforms? What do all the different flags around what they're wearing means? You know, you have to ask the question. I mean, this is before your eyes. This is not a conspiracy. You know, people start to, you know, go to, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, man. Have you not seen the stormtroopers? We've all seen the stormtroopers. Okay, like where, who? The question is who. And when we don't have that information, like we can only have snapshots of different information that we can get. You know, we've got these websites, or we've got these, you know, names that are floating around, but it's very hard to get the actual evidence to support, well, who is actually making these decisions, and really following the trail of who is infiltrating, influencing, you know, the laws that were being made, the directives that are being made. This whole thing is obviously a global, the COVID-19 issue is clearly a global scenario, and we're seeing our laws and our heritage in terms of common law and statutory law and statutory interpretation is kind of being hijacked, you know, by agendas that seem to really create a lot of doubt. And now we've got more and more people questioning, which is fantastic.
Yeah, because, you know, we're seeing that these black stormtrooper police are now using a blacked out flag with a blue stripe, which is all part of the Strong Cities militarized police force. And by the looks of it, by the way that they've been interacting with people just going about doing their fruit and veggie shopping at the Vic Market, you know, or you know, what happened to Tim Atkins on Sunday, you know, we're seeing this really increased brutality. And, you know, I was saying before the first hour that they really must be employing, you know, psychopaths, that there's a psychological profile that these applicants are fulfilling. And you know, it makes me question, why would you even want a job like that? Like, why would, is it worth your paycheck to be hurting your fellow humans like that, you know?
Asking such good questions, my dear, you know, and they really are such fundamental questions. You know, I have been working in the last 8 years in relation to exposing corruption in government. okay? What I have learned is this, that this is not something that has happened overnight. The corruption in the police force, the training of the police officers in the police force, the kind of people that join the police force, and the horrific lack of direction and training that is absent in terms of social understanding of behavior and how to de-escalate disputes and how to have the art form of really treating and healing people, where police come in to really be a mediative force. This is not this is not the kind of training the police officers get. In fact, they get zero training in that regard. The police culture is, and I don't shy in saying it, is one dirty, misogynist, patriarchal culture. It is ugly on the inside and it is ugly on the outside. Every time I deal with police officers, it's almost like I'm dealing with a clone of each of them. Yeah. And they are impossible to get through. They are not willing to negotiate. You know, they come in by force. They come in with disrespect. Now, I'm not saying all of the police officers are like this. I think that there are some that are really wonderful and try to do the right thing, and there's some fantastic detectives, but that culture is being thrown out. Individuals like that get targeted. There's a lot of bullying of officers within the police force. We've seen that recently with Assistant Dean McWhirter. I mean, he's just, you know, washing his hands of the bullying that occurs and the targeting that occurs within the police force itself. We've got, we've got all of these assistant commissioners that bully down upwards. So if you've got a senior commissioner on the top, if he doesn't do his job, he'll get bullied out. Okay, we've seen that with Ken Lay. Okay,
right, okay.
It is an ugly culture. Okay, it is there have a systemic problem with the bully boy standover tactics. And what we saw, what really horrified me was seeing, you know, the young man in the mental health. Is that
Tim Atkins? Yeah, they got run over, and
I was horrified. Like, I mean, how could you look at that and not be horrified? I was crying yesterday looking at that, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, these police officers, these are not one-off police officers. We have to understand they're very typical. These police officers are typical, okay? And what ends up happening, I mean, you know, this video was taped 2 times. When they first hit him with the car, they struck him and he flew off, and it was a serious thing. And then after that, they stomped his head. Like, I mean, what can you say when you see that? What can you say? And it is not just one cop. It is all of them. You saw all of them. Not one of them had the decency to stop the other one. They were all like, yeah, egging it on. You could see this violence, vile, filthy culture that is coming out from these cops, okay? And this is the problem. Whether you bring in the stormtroopers, can you imagine that already the culture is so filthy and dirty from the inside? They bully each other like there's no tomorrow. If you have one good cop, they will all pounce on him or her, okay?
Wow.
It is a kind of culture that, you know, the top boss is the boss and he tells you what to do. You have no voice and no choice and no nothing in the police force. It is a dirty culture. And then get this, when things like this happen, instead of coming down hard, they'll do an internal investigation to exonerate the individuals.
Yeah.
Give them a slight tap on the hand. Don't do that. Next time, make sure that you're not seen. They're not telling them, don't do that. We don't support this. On the outside, you know, the chief commissioner will come out and say, well, in our police force, we don't approve of these actions. Okay, you'll see them coming out like that, seeing them, but behind the scenes, okay, they are looking for ways to exonerate each other because they like bully boys.
Right.
They love bully boys because it's a bully boy culture. And guess what? The girls become bully boys too. The females in the police force want to rise up the chain. You bet your bottom dollar you got to become a bully girl. Okay, because it's kind of nice, open-minded, beautiful discussion way of talking about things and having appropriate processes and procedures and having, you know, insightful psychological understanding on how to de-escalate problems is nowhere to be seen in the police force. Now, we'll come back again to what the rights they have in this country. So let's look at Section 203 of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. What can the police do and what can't the police do in relation to these directives? Now, we're challenging these directives. We're saying in the court of law, we're seeking a challenge on the basis that they're unlawful, they've exceeded their powers, okay? They're in conflict with the legislation itself, so the legislation itself doesn't give them the ability to do directives and push everybody in the same bracket. So you can't just tell, hey, everyone, you got to all wear masks and you all got to be detained and you all got to be tested. There's actually what they call examination and testing orders under the law, under Section 113. And you've also got public health orders under Section 117 in Victoria we're talking about, of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. And there's processes there. There's internal review processes. You have to make an assessment that someone's at risk. Actually, they do have a risk of having COVID. You've got to have proper authorised individuals who are actually looking at these processes. So not everyone needs to be tested. Not everyone needs to be detained. So we're challenging the unlawfulness, okay, of these laws. And we're saying that you can't make subordinate legislation, which is what the executive do. They make subordinate legislation, okay? Now that subordinate legislation, they may have some rights to do that, but that's very limited. If the law already covers that field or already covers that issue, you can't just go and say, oh, we're going to forget about these processes of giving people notice, giving people service of the health order, making assessment risks, right of internal review, rights of review. You know, we live in a country that's a democracy. You know, if someone expects something of us, we need to be provided the appropriate steps, okay? So what the executive is coming in and saying, no, we don't want any of this anymore. We're going to do what we want. We're going to say to you, we're going to ask you to demand you to do something, okay, without giving you any of your rights, okay? So that's the number one problem. The second problem is the legislation itself creates a limit in terms of what you can do in terms of following through non-compliance. And under Section 203 of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act, it's penalty units. Okay, that means there is no jail term or there's no charges that can be laid criminal against people for breaching these compliance requirements, okay? So that means you can only fine an individual, issue them an infringement notice, and it must be carried out under the law as an ordinary infringement notice, like a traffic infringement notice or similar type of processes. So it's a fining and an infringement process that takes place. What the police are doing, they're going all out. They're saying, oh, we're going to start arresting people. We're going to start charging people. So the police commissioner is in trouble. He's in big, big trouble because you're sitting there, yeah, sure, you know, you've got some powers under the Act, okay, but this doesn't entitle you or enable you to just go full Monty on people and just start arresting and charging people when the legislation is setting a penalty units and it's giving you the processes under which you need to use. So you can't just go after people in that way. So what we're seeing here is the executive arm of government going completely mad. Okay, they've just expanded their own powers. They felt, well, let's take away the judiciary, let's take away the parliamentarians and the legislator, and let's just do what the hell we want, you know. And then they're saying, oh, we're going to be cruel to you and nasty to you for your safety. Are you kidding me? The Germans already learnt that lesson many moons ago, okay, that for their safety you had to kill all the Jews. Are you kidding me? Okay. Are you kidding me? Okay. So the thing is this, that this is not, you know, this is completely problematic because we're seeing a disproportionate amount of powers that the executive are trying to claim, okay, using the legislation in an unlawful way. That's what we say. They're using the legislation in an unlawful way to then go beyond what they're allowed to do, beyond the processes that are being set by the legislator, okay, and using these clauses that are so wide, okay, to say, oh, we can do what we want. Oh, it's COVID. It's COVID. It's an unknown novel virus. We might as well just throw out the rule book and just go crazy.
And I mean, since when are we sick till proven well? It's like being guilty till proven, innocent.
Yep. And I think, you're going to find now there's doctors that are coming out and are being really vocal. You have the 630 doctors now who've come out in Australia, who have a number of spokespersons. One of them is Dr. Jeffrey Wells, and a lovely, lovely doctor. And, they're coming out and saying, we know a lot more about this virus. We know it's not virulent to that level that has been presented. We know how to manage it. We've got some really good processes under which we can manage it, and it is disproportionate. You're coming after people who are perfectly healthy, okay, and you're not even applying any standards to actually understand whether they're a risk or not. It's called a risk assessment. We do that under the law in many, many ways. We carry out risk assessments. Is that person a risk? If you're healthy and you're walking around without a mask, you're not going to create an infection. This is where the illogicality is. You've got to kind of create the rules in accordance to the risk. Where the risks are, the rules should be there, okay? You don't just go around to all the healthy population, oh, you're crossing borders now, we're going to have cross-border police, and someone comes in from Victoria, all of a sudden the entire Victoria region is a risk. So all of a sudden you're a risk simply because you're Victorian, and you become treated like a leper. Oh, he's Victorian. Put him in the quarantine. And then it's like, well, what if you're not even showing symptoms after 14 days of quarantine? Western Australia, they've gone mad. Western Australia is holding people, and so is Queensland and New South Wales. But Western Australia is holding this gentleman with his family for 14 days. They've been held in hotel quarantine, no symptoms. Now they've been told, because you don't want to be tested, we're going to detain you for a further 10 days, so further punishment. But not just that.
Sounds like New Zealand.
Yes, and they get a call from the police, and Western Australian police is going to issue a summons. Okay, they're going to actually issue a summons on this family, and don't be surprised that if they're going to come in and use force to test them.
Wow.
Planet, and then you have Section 185 of the Public Health Act in Western Australia on drugs. Okay, it's clearly a legislation that is on drugs. Okay, because it says that you can take the underwear down of someone and you can bring the police with no warrant, no arrest, no nothing. You just call the cops. The chief health officer lifts up the phone. Hey, cops, come down. We got one here that we need to test. We got one that we need to vaccinate. And the cops come in. Yeah, sure. Let's use some force here that apparently under the law it's use some force with dignity. See, this is in this culture, in Australian culture, what has developed, unfortunately, amongst these corrupt, it is absolutely corrupt government officials, legislators, you name it, corrupt, okay? They sit there and tell you they're going to slap you in the face. They're going to pull your underwear down, but with dignity.
Oh, right.
They're
Yeah.
shameful. This is absolute. There's no other word except shameful. You're indignified. You're disgusting, and you have you're psychopathic. Okay. So what is going on now is not just that they're bringing in directives that are unjust. They're going so far as influencing the legislator and bringing in legislation that is pure vile. It is vile, okay? This is not a democracy. This is not respect. You know, when they look at you and say, we're respecting you, you're respecting me and you're hitting me with the car. You're respecting me and you're stomping on my head. You're respecting me, you're pulling down my underwear. You're respecting me and you're holding me detention. They're detaining people, asking them to pay. Criminals don't get that treatment in this country. If you're a convicted rapist, you don't have to pay for your jail time. But apparently, if you're suspect COVID, you have to pay. And get this, the police can do whatever they want with you. Now, I want to know which High Court judge is going to be okay with that. I want to know which High Court judge is going to be okay with that. Because you know what? That's not okay.
Are we in trouble here? Like in Victoria, like, are we actually in trouble here? Like, it feels to me that the police are they're acting in their own laws and regulations out. The people are not being respected at all. People with medical indemnities aren't being respected with that. They're still getting arrested and fined. People are taking the names of police, but does that actually do anything or go anywhere? And are we actually dealing with a deep state governmental takeover that we actually can't stop? Like, where do we stand right now? Where's this going?
God, you girls are asking all the right questions. They're the same questions I ask every day. You know, Kelly, what can I say except that we've reached a peak point of corruption. You know, when you reach a point where the corruption is so bad, it has almost taken over every single institution in this country, from review tribunals, mental health review tribunals, VCAT, all of the tribunals on the lower levels, to the Supreme Courts, to the magistrate courts, to the disgusting Family Court of Australia, the most filthy place that I have ever seen in my life. Filthy people, filthy judges. You know, and I'm not afraid to call them out for what they are, okay? Filthy networks of lawyers and all sorts of things that they think that they can bully and put you down and threaten you because you stand up for women and children who are being abused, okay? Yep. Child protection in this country that is foul. Children's courts, review tribunal, oversight bodies, okay, Human Rights Commission, Victorian Equal Opportunity Commission, right, Australian Human Rights Commission, right, you know, right.
High Court judges that are all compromised, right. So last week we had...
But I would say I still have some glimmer of hope in terms of some federal court judges and some high court judges are good. Okay.
So Justice Michael Kirby, I have a lot of love and respect for in the Australian High Court, but you know they're few and far between people like Justice Michael Kirby, I believe.
Yeah, look, I feel, Eilish, that there are still some good people up the top. I think sometimes they have to look at the merits of the case, and we've got a great body of law in this country. We've got common law tradition that is really good, particularly in the last 30 years. You know, we've had some real breakthroughs in terms of high court decisions that have really set some great precedents in terms of our rights. What we've seen, however, is the executive, with a lot of the judiciary and parliamentarians, completely sold off to foreign interests. You know, we've got people like Jane Halton, okay, who's a former, you know, she's a former Australian bureaucrat, okay, with top positions in the Australian government. And now she is sitting in every crevice, every place, every space, okay. She's in the National COVID-19 Commission, but she's got vested interests as a chair of Sept that's pushing vaccine agendas. She's also on the Crown, sitting in the Crown Resorts, okay. She's in ASPI now. She's in the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Why the hell is she there? Okay, she's so pro-China, okay, that ASPI is obviously an organisation funded by the defence, okay, and is there to actually be the eyes on the ground in terms of the risks of dealing with China. Now you get her in there. She's pro-China.
She's
Okay?
pro-China. Yeah,
So
she's
why-
UN.
She's pro-UN, pro-China. She's pro-everything that is foreign and
Yeah.
pro-nothing that is Australian, okay? And then I think, well, okay, this is interesting. So let's follow the trail with all these individuals. Okay, let's name some names and let's shame those names, okay? But the thing is this, Kelly, I've thought about this. What do we do? Okay, what do we do? About this quite a lot, okay? But what do we do to stop the peak corruption? It's come to a point where we all know, everybody knows that there's problem with our institutions. They've been hijacked by some seriously compromised individuals. So what do you do? This is what I think we need to do, okay? First of all, we need to unite. Okay, we need a uniting point. We are divided and they've made us divided. Okay, there's a lot of people in our community in Australia who cannot believe when you tell them that the government is corrupt. Okay, it's like cognitive dissonance. It's like they get so angry with you because you're telling them that truly we are at a very deep corrupt state. So that's the first point. Well, how are you going to get people to unite? That is a huge issue in this country because everyone is working separately. And we have, as we were talking before the show started, we have in this country the tall poppy syndrome. Okay, so if I'm coming up saying I want to help everyone, my opponents are not going to just be the corrupt individuals that I'm dealing with. The opponents are going to be the people who I'm helping. They come at you. They come at you like a wolf, okay, like vultures, you know. Who do you think you are? What do you know about the law? Oh my God, yes, I have had some. Oh, you're wrong. Look at you. Oh, what do you mean the biosecurity? Oh, you're stupid. Biosecurity Act means nothing. Oh yeah, this amazing piece of legislation that was brought as a cover the field, which has wonderful steps and procedures. Yeah, let's just all ignore it. Let's ignore the intergovernmental agreements that all the states and the Commonwealth signed, that the Commonwealth is there to actually build the legislative capacity of the state. Let's just ignore that, okay? And then you've got these lawyers who are coming at, I hope you lose. I hope you fail in everything you do. What you're doing is unlawful. You're illegal. Yes, I get attacked like this every day.
By your own brethren. Wow.
By people. Okay, of course, I get a lot of love. Okay, don't get me wrong. I get a lot of love. But if I wanted to work at uniting, people just hate you. I can't understand this. You know, this is deep tall puppy syndrome. Or what does she know? She's 2 days old. You know, just all sorts of, and everything is personal. Nothing is directed at actually what I'm saying and what the concerns that I'm pointing out. And the fact that I feel so strongly connected to this land and feel so strongly connected to people, you know, I really want the best for everybody, even the ones who are corrupt. I want to unite with everyone so that we can get over what we're doing. Okay, we can really create the pathways of change. Okay, so when you have this level of attack by legal colleagues, by you know, learned, apparently professionals in the community. Oh, what are you going around acting like you're a doctor? Who do you think? You got no rights to have an opinion on medicine. Okay, even though I'm a qualified nutritionist with dietetics masters. Okay, you know, apparently I don't know. I don't understand anything. Okay, I don't have the right to actually have an opinion on anything. Okay, I'll go and do what you're supposed to do. Go back to tax, Serene. Go back to tax. What do you got to do with the government?
Oh, man.
It's just,
that's crazy.
That's so nasty.
And I say to people like that, why? Put aside your nastiness for a second. What we're talking here about is our human rights. We're talking about our rights. We're talking about our vision for this country. We're talking about decency. We're talking about integrity. We're talking about uniting together to truly make changes. So this is my plan. My plan is I want to unite people. My plan is to keep the strength and keep my focus So we keep uniting together. We need to get over our differences. You know, people go, oh, don't talk to these people. You know that they're anti-vaxxers. Don't talk to these people. You know that they're right-wing. Don't talk to these people because you know they're left-wing. Don't talk to these people because they drink beetroot latte. You know what I mean? You know, and it's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Can we just get past politics, gender, political class, wealth, status, sexuality? Let's get over that. Like, seriously, let's get over that, okay?
Yeah, that was like so 219. So let me ask you, because I mean, from where I stand, it's obvious that we're dealing with a systematic global planetary takeover movement right now. Like, this is happening across the world in various cities and states and countries. And it's almost like for it to come to some ending conclusion or breakthrough here in Melbourne, something else has to happen somewhere else in the world. Like, it no longer feels so state bound. And, you know, like, we interviewed someone, Danny Seal, this week, and he said the military are preparing to arrest Daniel Andrews for treason. So my first question to you, is he going to be arrested for treason?
Can I say something here, Kelly? This is really important.
Yes.
There's something in this nation called wishful thinking. When there is so much trouble in our space, you know, when there's so much filth and trouble and indignity in our, and I'm talking here our territory. So this is our land, and I'm talking, let's say, Victoria, because we're all Victorians right now, okay? We have a desire to always project something that really isn't there. Okay. Oh, Scott Morrison's flying down to have a word with you know, with Daniel Andrews. You know, the ADF are all preparing to arrest Daniel Andrews. Okay. You know, Trump is going to save the world. Okay. And you know, he's catching pedophiles, apparently. Apparently, Trump is catching pedophiles. Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, look, there might be some elements of that is correct. Okay. But what we have to understand is controlled opposition as well. Okay, in these things, and we have to try to understand how controlled opposition works. Okay,
Definitely.
and it creates these it's like Sky News. Okay, they'll complain and complain, but they won't host me on the show because I'm doing something about it. Okay, so it's called controlled opposition. Okay, we're going to hire you to be the complaining. You're going to complain so people can feel like they're venting. Okay, but nothing will ever change. Okay, because if we actually say to you that something is going to, like, nothing is going to change, because nothing's going to change in terms of these corrupt individuals, because they're all getting benefits from each other. And by the way, they all sell each other out all the time. Okay, so they bully each other all the time. Okay,
wow.
The idea that the ADF is going to come and make an arrest on Daniel Andrews, or that, you know, Scott Morrison is going to pull Daniel Andrews in line, or Scott Morrison is going to actually become the prime minister that he should. It ain't happening. Okay, this is not happening, because what we actually need is not a savior from the outside. What we actually need is to become our own savior. Okay, and these people do this as psychological warfare. They do this on us every day, where they try to present people as somehow they're going to rescue you. Okay, that rich people, you know, rich people are never heroes. Okay, rich people are never heroes in history or now. Rich people don't help poor people. Okay, that's not really how the dice rolls. Okay, what we need to do is claim our space. So what I intend to do is the following. I'm going to do this class action. I'm going to push the unity point, irrespective of the haters out there, irrespective of their psychological warfare that they wage every day on people like myself and everyone. Okay. I'm going to continue to do that. The second thing I'm going to launch soon is what is called the People's Commission.
Right.
So the People's Commission is this. It's not a royal commission because we're sick of royal commissions.
They don't do anything.
Yeah. Royal commissions happen when you want to bury the issues, okay? When a whole bunch of corrupt people are about to be sniffed out, okay? What do? They bring their mates to do a royal commission so we can bury the issues. And guess what? They do terms of reference that we're not going to really do much here. We're just going to give you an opportunity to vent. Okay, so once you come and people stand up in the commission and they're crying and they're sharing their stories and people are writing, oh yes, we hear you, we hear your suffering. Here's $50,000 for being raped by a whole bunch of priests. Okay, for all the Indigenous that have been screwed in this country, even a lower amount for you. Okay, so so I don't agree with how we create transparency in this country. There's no transparency. So we have all these oversight bodies and all these royal commissions that occur to bury the issue. What we actually need is a People's Commission, meaning I will have an encrypted site where I'm going to call for the stories of people, all the traumas that have occurred in this country. Every perpetrator that has hurt another individual in this country, particularly institutional perpetrators. So once your perpetrator is identified and you go to an institution for help and support to deal with a known perpetrator, what ends up happening is you deal with another perpetrator, and that's called the institutional abuse, okay? So the Catholic Church are so good at institutional abuse. They've had many hundreds of years of perfecting how to stuff up people, okay? But guess what? The Catholic Church doesn't stop there. The Catholic Church is our government, okay? The Catholic Church is our institutions. It is the Family Court of Australia, and it's even worse, okay? It is the Children's Court. It is the police force, okay? It is the psychiatrists that are hired in all the hospitals, the public hospitals, and their deep state psychiatry, okay?
Yes, they are, yes.
Okay? So these are assassinators. Okay, hired gun assassinators.
Yeah.
So what the People's Commission is going to do, I'm going to invite all the Australian public to come and share with me their story. Okay, I want them to name, okay, the institutional abuser. Okay, sorry about my phone. I need to, I'll take it somewhere else because it's going to keep going. So, because it won't stop. I'm not able to make it stop. All the calls. But so the institutional abusers, okay, are everywhere in this country. And I'm going to be seeking to have, I'm just taking you outside. I'm going to seek to have a website, encrypted forms where people can put in who their abusers are, who in the institutions, the judges, the independent children's lawyers, the court judges, the children's court judges, the Victorian police officers, the Queensland officers, the Western Australia police officers, the attorney generals, what they've done to you, how they've silenced you. Okay, because I'll tell you what's wrong with this country. We're not hearing those stories. Okay, a lot of these people, and I've been dealing this for over 8 years, have been brutalized, okay, by government departments, whether it's tax office, whether it's ACCC, whichever government office you have, whether it's whistleblowers from the inside, whether it is people from the outside, okay. Institutional abuse in this country is the hallmark of this nation, unfortunately. Okay, and unless we're going to know who these people are, and unless I'm going to have the data together to know the names of the individuals, so then once I've got the data and I've got the information on these individuals, who are the perpetrators, who will come up with 20 or 30 or 100 times, okay, their names will come up, okay, because I'm collecting the data, okay, I'm collecting that information. Then what we will do parliamentary commissions. We will do prosecutions, private prosecutions on police officers,
who are corrupt. We'll do private prosecutions on judges to have them named and shamed and removed from their positions for brutalizing people, for handing children over to known pedophiles and perpetrators.
Yes.
Okay? Then we can, and you know, don't get me wrong, pedophilia is very linked to this problem. Okay, when you have such corrupt people at the top, you know, they often have so much stuff on each other, okay?
Yeah, the blackmail,
Blackmail, man, in this country, it's big. It's big time. Blackmail is big time in this nation. Again, it's very dirty, very seedy, very misogynistic, very patriarchal. Okay, and you know, people, are you a feminist? I'm a radical feminist. I'm proud of it. Okay, I'm proud of it. You know what? You know, as a woman, okay, you are so targeted. Okay, by every society. I come from, you know, an ethnic culture, Lebanese culture. Okay, and you know, I get more respect as a Lebanese woman than as an Australian woman. Okay, go figure. You know, go figure those things, okay? But you know, we need to have the People's Commission, because I love your questions, girls, because you actually want a solution. How are we going to deal with this? We need to start to unite. We need to unite. We need to start to hear each other. We need to start to hear the trauma of what trauma has been created in this country by the institutions, okay? By people who are benefiting from us, from our hard work. Okay, why should a judge be on a $500,000-$600,000 wage when they're hurting people every year? Okay, why should a Victorian police officer get away with racism and misogyny and causing pain on other people? Okay, why should these assistant commissioners get away with it? You know, why should psychiatrists be allowed to be used as hired guns to emotionally assassinate people in the system? Okay, force people to kill themselves. Suicide in this country is created by the evil that is the institutional abuse in this country. Okay, so I'm going to be releasing that soon, and I will let you know. Okay,
Thank you.
Maybe we can have another session on...
Would love that, Serene. Thank you.
Because we need to now start to understand, you know, I need to get the evidence. I'm a lawyer, so I'm all about the evidence. Okay, get the evidence, okay? When you make a claim against someone, you have to have the evidence to support you, okay? But we've reached a peak point of deep corruption in the country, and we are now...
Yeah, I mean, like, just to wrap it up here, but like, I mean, I am very aware of how all of this, we know, Eilish and I've studied this for so many decades now. We're so ready for this grand, like, bringing everything back out into the light and exposing the truth and justice and liberty and freedom again. You know, but like, I stand here in Victoria and I'm feeling nervous. And I think there's a lot of people who are really aware and know what's going on, and are feeling pretty nervous right now as to where this is going to lead us in the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months. And, you know, if you know, it's something we need to be doing right now. I mean, there's so much talk about, you know, like leaving the state or getting out before it gets too chaotic. I mean, we really are at a pinnacle of, I mean, it's chaotic right now, you know, like we're watching so much going on. So what do you have to say to everyone who's feeling a little bit stressed out and nervous about where we're heading?
We have to unite. I can't even stress that point.
Thank you, Serene. Sorry about that. You just broke up there a little bit, but yeah, can you just rephrase that, please?
You're mute.
And just unmute. Yeah, unmute.
Sorry. Yes, I just.
It's all right.
Thank you. I just want to say, look, don't leave the state. We've got to stay here. We've got to unite. Join my class action. Let's consolidate the masses. Okay. Let's work on healing this state. Okay. Let's work on healing Australia. You know, I'm not going to leave. I mean, I'm Lebanese, as I said, Lebanese Australian. You know, I'm not going to leave this country. You know, I want to stay here and fight for what I believe is right, but not even fighting. I just want to unite. I don't want to fight. I just want to unite. I want to heal. I want to unite, and I want to call out the corrupt. I want them to understand that we are coming not to hurt them, but we're coming to heal them. Okay, we're coming to say, We're going to call you out on what you've done. We're going to hear the stories of those who have been brutalized by you. Okay. And we are going to try and do something about it, because you need to stop. You need to start acting nice. You need to start acting collegiately. Okay. You know, we only are living the reality that we're experiencing because we're not uniting. Okay. If we unite and collectively believe in a reality of happiness for all, of safety for all, then we're not going to have a problem. Okay. That's what we're not doing. You know, it's in our hands, actually. You know, we don't realize that it's not just the perpetrators can only do what they do to us because we let them. We give them permission to rule us in the way that they have. Okay. Once we collectively come together and unite and say, hey guys, no more. We're not going to be accepting your directives. We're not going to be accepting these rules. We're not going to be accepting the corruption. We're not going to be accepting children being hurt and protective mothers being targeted and children going hungry. We're not going to accept that. Collectively, we do not accept that. And until we rise from our selfishness and until we rise from our personal needs, we are going to remain in the state that we're in. So I'm daring to dream. I'm daring to put the wheels in motion to say, together, my sisters and brothers, okay, we can do this together, okay? We are all heroes, okay? We're all heroes, okay? There's not one savior. No one can save you except yourself. Okay, it's all in your mind. It's all in our personal perception of each other. And when we start to practice love and forgiveness and kindness, because that's really what's missing. It's very simple, really. What's missing is love, kindness, and forgiveness. And when we start to truly embody those qualities, okay, beyond religion, beyond, you know, most religions like Christianity advocates for love, peace and forgiveness, you know, the beautiful stories of Jesus. And, you know, and then you've got Muslims with Muhammad and Jews with Moses and all the other prophets, and then Buddhists and Hindus and Taoists and everyone with their, and atheists with their spirituality, and everyone, we all got to get past, you know, the paradigm of difference and really come together harmoniously, to come together as brothers and sisters, looking at each other and going, I wish for you what I wish for myself.
Yeah.
Okay? And until we're going to get to that point, you know, we are going to experience trauma. Okay. And trauma is only a response to our failure to make the choice of kindness and love. Once we make that choice collectively for each other, okay, then we can. So I am reaching out to those cops that are corrupt. I am reaching out to the government officials that are corrupt. I'm saying, come on, guys, like, and girls, open up your eyes. Like, where are you going with this? I mean, where's the end for you? I mean, where's the end point? I mean, Kelly, you know, you asked, so what is the point of where they're trying to get to? Okay. What, I mean, they're only hurting themselves by hurting others. Well, that cop hitting that guy on the head, I mean, hurting himself. I mean, I'm pretty certain that he is probably now in shock as to how he got to that point. Okay, and he got to that point because the system let him. It bred him to be that way. He was taught to be that way. Okay, he wasn't taught on love and forgiveness. You know, his assistant commissioners didn't teach him love and forgiveness and de-escalation. How do you de-escalate? How do you get someone who is mentally ill and talk to them nicely and deal with them with the respect they deserve? Okay, no, we're going to come in, we're going to beat each other up, we're going to hurt each other, I'm going to pull your hair, I'm going to call you a psycho, I'm going to say you're shit, you're nothing, blah, blah, blah. So I just think it's, at the end of the day, it's really fundamentally basic. It's about love and forgiveness. Let's get that happening, and let's unite with each other, and let's stop hating each other. That's it.
Well, ultimately, that is the Great Awakening, is it not? The return to love, light, and unity. That is the shift in consciousness that we are dealing with, which, in my mind, we are dealing with a war on consciousness.
We are beautifully said, beautifully said. Both of you are very spiritual women. You know, you're very in touch with, you know, what is, and we need to talk about, you know, when we criticize the bad, we also need to acknowledge the good. Okay.
Absolutely.
And we need to unite with each other. We need to say, you know, it is about consciousness. We are talking here about beyond skin and bones. We're seeing here this emotion that is sitting in our minds, in our hearts, you know. We need to start projecting it and get rid of fear. Fear that blocks us, you know. It's the fear that makes us think that that person is going to hurt us, okay?
Absolutely.
You know, it's the fear that allows them to feel like they can do that to us. Okay, and I'll keep working on that because, you know, we've got no other option. We've only got one life.
Yeah.
I mean, fear is all they need to control a population. That's it. They don't need anything else. It's fear. That is the one thing that will create authority and control. So yeah, I mean, this is a war against fear. I mean, love and light.
Exactly. And it's, you know, darkness is often associated as something bad, okay? But actually darkness is healing, okay? You know, we often associate, because that's actually patriarchal thinking. We have language, we've learnt language that is very negative in the way that we speak. In fact, light and darkness are both important, okay?
Yep.
And light and darkness are harmony. Evil sits outside of light and darkness, okay? And in fact, what evil people need is more darkness, because what happens when you put a little caterpillar in a cocoon, it becomes a butterfly, okay? What it needs is complete darkness for it to actually go inwards and grow into something beautiful, okay? So a lot of people actually need darkness. They need the cocoon. They need to go back into the cocoon so they heal from the evil that they've become, okay? Because in every person there's good. In every person, even the monsters, okay?
Yes.
They have good inside of them. And we need to believe in that, okay?
Yeah.
Because we need to draw on that. Okay, and we need to understand that what we're seeking here is to rehabilitate, is to rejuvenate, is to reconnect, you know, with both our consciousness and the consciousness of everyone else. And, you know, I get criticized. Oh, you're talking like you know, a spiritual hippie guru, you know. Guess what? We're human, mate. You know, we're human. Okay, we're all guru hippies, whether you like it or not. We're all hippies. Let's go back to the ground. We're all hippies. Okay, we all love the land. We all love to walk barefoot and experience the sand on our feet. Okay, we are fundamentally spiritual creatures. Okay, let's go back to that, for God's sake. Let's go back to connecting on that point, you know. And the people go, oh, well, you're legal, you know, legal. Yeah, I could be a lawyer and I could be very spiritual at the same time, because in fact, I'm motivated to do the right thing legally because of my spirituality.
Because of your higher spiritual intentions. That very much sums up the temperance card in the tarot, you know, which is 1 foot in spirit and 1 foot in the practical applications of survival. And you know, and so I love the balance that you have within your spirit, Serene. The fact that you are so wise and so switched on when it comes to this 3D world stuff, but you have this vision of the 5D consciousness, of the unity consciousness that's required here now. And what you say with the People's Commission, you know, to me, it reminds me of the name of my old show, We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For, because that's what, you know, that's who we are. And we love you and we support you, and we implore everybody to come in and check out advocateme.com.au and get in on the class action. Write and put and submit, how has this COVID lockdown impacted on you? And
Absolutely. And COVID, I mean, I've got so many different categories under which people have been impacted, you know, the detention, the testing, the cross-border, the illogicality of separating families, the targeting of businesses, you know, you name it, we've got it, you know, in terms of everything that could go wrong, it has gone wrong, you know, and And fundamentally, like you said, we are who we've been waiting for. That is just so beautiful, because we often look for saviors outside, okay?
Yeah.
And when we turn to ourselves and we realize, oh my goodness, it's me. I want people to stand in the mirror and look at yourself and go, you know what, hey, guess what? You're your own hero. It's
Yeah.
me. I'm the one who's going to save me, you know, and together we can all save each other, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
it's definitely been inverted. I mean, you know, we've been taught to think we fall in love when actually we rise in love. Right? With the movement of rising in love, everything is inverted.
Isn't that gorgeous? It is, isn't it? Everything is inverted, exactly. And that is the linguistics and how linguistics get used to subjugate people, okay? Because it's conditional training, you know? Exactly. We don't fall in love. We rise in love.
We rise.
That is beautiful.
Well, we can't wait to have you back on, Serene, and to support you in your work and your endeavour and your advocacy. We thank you so much for your courage and your bravery. It's women like you that make me really proud to, you know,
Me
to
too.
still
Me
be
too.
here, you know, and be here in this really, really challenged state at the moment of Victoria and Australia. And love to everybody else that's going through a bit of a hard time at the moment. You know, we are deeply touched by, you know, some of the struggles that people having just to attend their parents' funerals or say goodbye to somebody in another state, and being, you know, held by quarantine, so they're missing the final moments of their parent or the final moments of their child. And we hear and see everything, and we just want to, you know, unite. And I think what you're doing, Serene, by uniting Australians with your class action is absolutely the way to move forward here. And if anybody wants to come and lend Serene a hand, please offer your services. I'm sure that we could all use a bit of a hand here, you know. So thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, Serene. Thank you. It's so refreshing to hear you speaking on these very important topics, and we look forward to having you back again on Aussie Disclosure News.
Thank you so much for the wonderful platform that you provide and for the wonderful work that you both do. It is just so refreshing to have such insightful women. And I think it's so important as women that we recognize each other. The patriarchy most certainly tries to divide women a lot, okay?
Yeah.
And, you know, and train women to be against each other, okay, for the voice of patriarchy. But, you know, we all should rise together and understand our pain. We welcome all the men who can appreciate us as goddesses.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
The rise of the divine feminine is here, everyone.
Yep.
Watch
Yep.
out.
Here she is. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you again next week for another edition of Aussie Disclosure News. So lovely to have you, Serene. Thank you so much, everybody, and please support the network any way you can and share this link. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, this is Serene Teffaha from Advocate Me. We wanted to do this video to try and provide some assistance to our community in trying to understand the legal framework and the sections that apply in terms of the federal framework of management of public health risks and emergency powers, as well as the state and territories. I will be using Victoria as an example in this video, just to draw out those differences and try to understand how they reconcile. There is a lot of hate at the moment out there, and this question isn't about masking and anti-masking and vaxxing and anti-vaxxing. This is about laws. This is about trying to understand our legislative framework. Our legislative framework doesn't operate on one section. It operates on a framework. And what that means is that it's a series of laws that are meant to be read and understood in context. Now, the public health risks, especially national public health risks, a legislative framework that is on a national level operates through the Biosecurity Act 2015. Now, please I'm asking a lot of people. Everybody wants me to repeat this or write to them a certain email or that. I'm giving you this as assistance pending a class action. So please, you go Google those sections and Google these laws, but I'm going to be clear about what they are. Biosecurity Act 2015. Look it up. It's a long piece of legislation, but I will give you some guidance in terms of which sections to go to. This Biosecurity Act sits on top of that framework, and it gives itself the priority when it comes to public health risks. What do I mean it gives itself its priority? Section 8 of the Biosecurity Act is very clear how it's intended to apply to interact with the states and territories. It's a legislation that sets itself up as the boss, okay? So it says, I am the important one here. And how does it do that is this. It basically says it does not exclude or limit the operation of a law or a state that is capable of operating concurrently with this act. That means it cannot be inconsistent with this act. That means what the states and territories want to do with their laws and however way they want to apply them, it has to be concurrent with the Biosecurity Act. I haven't said that. The Biosecurity Act has said that.
We are 99%. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails and their evil contrails. Blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. You can stick your coronavirus up your arm. You can stick your coronavirus up your arm. You can stick your coronavirus. You don't get proven liars. Stick your coronavirus up your arm. You can bring it down 99%. Sing it, we are 99%. Sing it, we are the 90. Together, we are 90. We are 99%. You can stick your poison vaccines up your arm. You can stick your poison vaccines up your arm. You can stick your poison vaccines. Stick your poison vaccines. Stick your poison vaccines up your